Welcome to the Guide to Wellness podcast. I'm Susannah, licensed acupuncturist. We're here to chat about health and well-being. Just a reminder, everything in this podcast is information only, not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. It's useful information to maintain a healthy life balance. Hello, everybody. Susannah Freeman here, licensed acupuncturist. I have the great pleasure to have joining me today Dr. Breana McElgunn, my dear friend and colleague of many, many years. And we're here today to chat with you about what makes an ordinary day special, and particularly special with augmented nutrition. And we're going to talk about what that means. Why are we using this term that nobody's ever heard of, augmented nutrition? And we'd like to talk about how does that feed into, no pun intended, having a super quality day. And why take supplements after all? There are more pills, people say to us. They're expensive, people say to us. They make them feel sick because they're opening all these bottles. These are the objections that we get. And so what we'd like to do today, Dr. B and I, that's how we all call her Dr. B. And you've heard her on our podcast before. We love having you here, Dr. Breana. So welcome, and I'll introduce you in a minute. I just want to get to what the topic of this conversation here is, to debunk these myths about I'm just going to diss these vitamin companies for a moment. When you go to Amazon and you go to these big box retailers and you buy these one-a-day vitamins that are cheap and convenient, are you actually getting what you think you're getting? And is it doing anything for you? That's the question. And we're here to help flip that idea into, how do you actually improve the quality of your life and how you feel in your body? And how do you wake up feeling alive and awake and ready to go, and quite frankly, happier, when you take supplements on a daily basis? So a little bit of backstory. I was 16 years old and I was in high school, and I can still remember this day. I was sitting in my favorite spot in the living room in my old century-old house, and everybody was gone. I was at home sick for the day, and I was old enough to be home alone. I was pretty darn uncomfortable. I had bronchitis and I had a cough, and they gave me antibiotics, which I was fine with. I was sick enough that I understood that I needed that. But my doctors also gave me codeine with cough syrup, and because I had this nasty cough. And I remember sitting on this red Persian rug in my favorite spot in the living room with the sun coming in, and petting the cat, and just being so nauseous and uncomfortable and like thick-headed. And I wasn't coughing, but I didn't feel good. And I remember making a decision that day that the medicine made me feel sicker than the illness. And I will never forget that day. And ever since then, that was many years ago now, I continue to be very, very selective about using prescription medications, because the side effects I find drop my vitality. Now, that said, if I need them, that's the first thing I'm going to do. But recently I had a little run-in with this virus that we all love and hate to talk about. And the first thing I did was I called my friend Dr. Breana and said, guess what? I have COVID. And she and I together immediately came up with a plan. And it was so beautiful to see how these daily supplements that we wound up changing over the course of a few weeks to follow the progression, and using targeted medicine. And I called my primary care doctor, and we did all of that to make sure that I was safe and progressing well back to health. And it worked, and it worked beautifully. So that's my story. Breana, I want you to tell us just a little bit also about, why do you take nutritional supplements every day to augment your health, and what does that mean to you, and why is it important for our patients?
So my story is that generally I was somewhat sickly as a little one, 4, 5, 6 years old with chronic recurrent ear infections, throat infections, etc. I had my tonsils removed, which helped when I was 6 years old. But even after that, I would still have these recurrent bouts. It wasn't until I was in medical school in my early 20s, early to mid 20s, that I was introduced to the idea of food that I was eating was contributing to my frequent infections, canker sores, ear infections, throat infections. And
Mm-hmm.
at that time, it was necessary for me to eliminate certain foods from my diet. Peanuts was a big one, dairy products was a big one. Later in my life, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, celiac disease. So I had to eliminate gluten. So when
Mm-hmm.
you eliminate those foods, because those foods are making me ill, or someone else, those foods might
Mm-hmm.
make them ill,
Mm-hmm.
you miss out on some of the vitamin and mineral benefits when you remove those foods. So, in my experience, I need to augment my nutrition with certain selective vitamins and minerals to
Mm-hmm.
maintain my health because I've
Yeah.
removed those foods. I also know that with my stress response and my day to day stressors, I need to continue to support my adrenal glands so that I can thrive despite those
Mm-hmm.
stressors.
Yeah.
So I again use augmented nutrition or supplements uh,
Mm-hmm.
to maintain that, to help my body
Mm-hmm.
thrive despite the
Right.
stressors.
So in your case, and this is something we do with basically all our patients, is understand you know how to support your endocrine system or your hormones, in this case thyroid and adrenals. We also talk a lot about pancreas and insulin. So you're doing that in a targeted way, in addition to what are the specific vitamins and minerals that help the adrenals and the thyroid work better, right? So we talk about like eat a handful of Brazil nuts every day for selenium to help support your T4 to T3 conversion, right? Have a little sea salt and water in the morning to support sodium to feed your adrenals, right? These are the little nutritional tips that we give people, right? So, all of you listening, please do that, right? Make sure your Brazil nuts are not rancid, they go rancid quick, right?
Yes,
But,
keep
right,
them
do
in
you
the
see what I
freezer
mean?
if you have to.
Right? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
other B vitamins are hugely
Mm-hmm.
important for the adrenal
Yeah.
system. Vitamin B5, vitamin
Right.
B12. And again,
Right.
when we have
Yeah.
stressors, when
Yeah.
people are using other medications
Mm-hmm.
therapeutically, those medications can also
Mm-hmm.
deplete our B vitamin stores, which
Right.
then creates a higher need to
Right.
supplement and augment our
Well,
nutrition.
so why can't I just go down to my favorite big box store or my favorite online retailer and get some B vitamins, Dr. B? What's wrong with that?
Not all brands are created equal. Number one, some brands, the label listing of ingredients is not actually what is in that product. When we look at third party um, potency testing, there's many reputable brands that are out there that we have utilized over the course of time
Mm-hmm.
that test independent batches of their
Mm-hmm.
formulas to
Right.
guarantee, to
Mm-hmm.
certify that
Right.
what they put in there is
Uh-huh.
actually in there. We see this with probiotics.
Mm-hmm.
Probiotics might
Yeah.
list a
Right.
certain number of billions of bugs on the label, but when they're tested independently, and in
Mm-hmm.
fact, that is
Right.
not what's on the label. The amounts are much lower.
Or they're
So
putting in fillers, or the bacteria, the healthy bacteria in the probiotic has a very limited shelf life. And so it's not actually, by the time it gets to the person and into their kitchen, it doesn't actually have the viability, correct?
absolutely,
Right. Yeah.
absolutely. So
So,
again,
yeah.
not all brands are created
Yeah.
equal. When you
Mm-hmm.
buy something
Mm-hmm.
that is less expensive, this is where we start to have compromising with that
Mm-hmm.
product.
Right.
So when you buy
Okay.
a quality
Yeah.
product, a brand that's reputable, there's brands that have been out there for decades and they're
Mm-hmm.
powerhouses. We could
Yeah.
also equate
Yeah.
that to say the same thing with if you buy an automobile. If you
Mm-hmm.
buy something that's less expensive, oftentimes it's prone to breaking down.
Right.
Same thing applies to
Yeah.
augmented nutrition and supplements. When you buy something
Yeah.
that's less expensive, you're not getting what you think
Right.
or expect.
Right.
Another thing,
Yeah.
when we think
Yeah.
about minerals, is minerals have to be attached to another molecule. So certain minerals that are attached to certain molecules are less absorbable because the bond, how those
Hmm.
two molecules are attached, is very, very rigid. It's very, very stiff. It's difficult to break that bond. So oftentimes with minerals, you can't absorb as much calcium or
Right.
magnesium or zinc or potassium
Yeah.
that's necessary for you because that bond is too strong. So we have to
Yeah.
also have to look at the type of mineral and
Right.
what mineral is
Right.
that molecule bonded to.
I love talking to you, Dr. B, because you're a real person with this amazing brain and training, and you get to talk about bonds between with minerals to allow them to be more absorbable. It's very, very
Yep.
cool.
The same
So,
applies too to
mhm,
B12. B12 is another one of
right.
those where
Yes, for
there's
sure.
cheaper
Let's talk about that.
versions that are less
Mhm.
absorbable and less beneficial.
Correct. And so that's where our lab testing comes in to find out. And you can do this with a CBC and a CMP, like the complete blood count and the comprehensive metabolic panel that most people, and we would encourage this, are testing once a year at least to find out, is the quality of your blood and the quality of your nutrition working for you? You can find that out with some basic labs. Oftentimes we'll get more detailed because we want more information, but just the basic wellness panel that you can get from a wellness fair or your doctor can be really helpful to determine how is that B12. It's called the
Mhm.
MCV on the CBC, right?
Yes,
And so
yes.
if that MCV is high, that's one of our big clues. And there's some other markers on the CBC and CMNP that I know that you like to look at and I like to look at that will help us give us clues. Is the vitamin that you're taking actually doing anything for you? Or do you need a higher quality, more absorbable B vitamin? And then what I love to talk about in addition to that is, well, why do I need vitamin B12? And why do I need B complex? And then we get to talk about neurotransmitters and
And mitochondria.
dopamine and mitochondria, right? And how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? And is your dopamine right there ready to give you energy and motivation for the day? And the best way to do that, other than a good night's sleep, is to make sure that you have all of your methylation pathways intact and feeding into the dopamine production in your brain. I can't give you a pill that's going to give you dopamine, but I can give you vitamin B12 and the B complex and some other targeted minerals that you're absorbing. And then your body and your brain in particular will know how to make dopamine and wake you up in the morning and jump out of bed and be like, I'm ready. I love this day. Let's go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we know so many people that struggle with fatigue,
Mhm.
either upon waking
Yeah.
or later in the day, that the fatigue is an issue for them. And there are some very effective ways to combat fatigue when we use targeted augmented
Mhm.
nutrition with
Yeah.
absorbable forms, brands that we trust,
Mhm.
and in potencies that are appropriate for each individual based on their lab tests. This is where that functional medicine comes into the equation.
I'm a little distracted. Is that your cat mewing at you?
Yes, it is my cat. He is deciding that he wants to go out, but he'll have to wait for
That's
just
all
a
right. I
minute.
love having a cat join us in this conversation.
Mhm.
And I bet that is a mighty well-fed cat in terms of not so much, but the quality of what that cat eats. I have a feeling living in your house, your cat is
Yes,
very
yes,
nutritionally
um,
supported. So
he is.
can we chat for a few minutes about you mentioned it a few minutes ago about the price. Okay, so like, all right, so Dr. B, I hear you that you want me to take vitamins, but honestly, what I can get off the, Amazon is just fine, right? And I like it's in my budget.
So
What are you
this
going to
is
say to me?
where so this is where we look at what people are eating and if they're able
Mhm.
to absorb their
Mhm.
nutrition effectively day to day. And when we're stressed, when we have life challenges, work, kids,
Mhm.
busyness, our
Mhm.
ability to absorb things becomes compromised. So we cannot get everything through our diet
Mhm.
and the foods we eat. We
Yeah.
also have soil
Yeah.
depletions. Our
Right.
food is less
Mhm.
nutritious than it was,
Yeah.
20 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. So when we look at supplementing, augmenting nutrition with targeted nutritional formulas, this is where I go back to the brands that I've used, the brands that I've trusted for over 20 years, that says this brand specifically is effective. I see it improve things for patients over 20 plus years in practice. I see it improve blood test, and it's worth the price for you to feel better day to day. How many of us do, convenience meals? We do drive through at the coffee shop. We do drive through, to get convenient foods. Those foods are inexpensive, but they're also insufficient in nutrition. So if you can budget for, that favorite drive-through coffee, we can find a way to budget and get you that targeted nutrition and still work with your budget. So there are lots of brands that are affordable yet absolutely effective and beneficial.
That is such an important conversation to have about people's budgets, because you and I both in our clinics, we talk with people, every patient, about what's their budget. And I like to define budget as time, energy, money, right?
Yes.
And so, and we add into this the budget of how many pills can I take in a day? And
Yes.
every time we give a supplement or an augmented nutrition, then we also give the food attached. So, like I said, sea salt to feed your adrenals, right? We want that sodium. We want selenium in Brazil nuts and zinc in pumpkin seeds to feed the thyroid, right? We want
I would
chromium to feed the pancreas and insulin. So we always want to improve, like we want people eating sauerkraut and cabbage for their gut health. And so how do we build? We want people eating broccoli for their methylation support. We want people eating grass-fed beef for their quality of their fats and their omega-3s, right? So always, what is the nutrition, what is the food source for the vitamin that we are also prescribing?
Yes.
And
So
so,
one of my favorite minerals is potassium.
yeah,
And everyone thinks about, oh, bananas and potassium. In
right.
fact,
Yeah,
bananas are not the most potassium rich food. So as we
right.
think about that
Yeah,
sodium
yeah,
potassium electrolyte balance, the number of times that I'm giving people the potassium rich foods list, the calcium rich
right.
foods list
Yeah,
that includes dairy as well as non-dairy options,
yeah.
iron rich foods list.
Yeah, right,
Absolutely. It's
right.
tied
Yeah,
to
yeah,
concentrating their food that they eat to get certain
yeah,
nutritional elements, as well as augmenting their nutrition
yeah,
in a pill, powder, or liquid form. That's
correct.
another point, is that some people have trouble swallowing pills.
Mhm.
So there are powdered nutrition, there's liquid nutrition. Oftentimes you can open that capsule and mix it in a smoothie or other, easy to swallow foods for that unique person. Like children, can kids swallow pills? Yes. But is it easy for them to swallow pills?
Mhm.
No.
Right. Yeah. And so, and some of my patients will just do like a morning smoothie and they'll just put all their liquid stuff in there. And my favorite way to deliver Chinese herbal medicine, which I do ideally with every patient, along with these vitamins to provide that synergy and that symptom relief and that long-term support, is in powdered form. So it's a great way to deliver that. You don't feel like you're taking a pill. Um,
Mhm.
sometimes people like have to work around the taste, but then they start to develop. Sometimes people are like, I love the taste of those Chinese
In
herbs.
fact, I had my
Ah,
Chinese herbs in my tea this morning
that's
that
right.
Susannah has
So,
prescribed for me.
right. So you're a good example of like, I know that you are working with your own naturopathic doctors. I never introduced you. Dr. Breana McElgunn is a licensed naturopathic physician here in the state
Yes,
of Montana who happens to live in Alaska, and we get to see her here in the clinic when she comes back to see patients. So we
yes,
see her in both Montana and we talk to her in Alaska. So anyway, so when you and I have an herbal consult, we identify what are the key Chinese herbal formulas that you either take as needed or you take on a daily basis, or maybe I should say, maybe most days, to improve the quality of your life, right? And those have been really successful for you.
yes. And
And
again,
then,
this is
right?
how I like to take them
Uh-huh.
is in
Yeah.
a tea form. And there, I love the ritual. And this is where, again, people can make their smoothies. They can do their liquids and powders and have it in a easy to
Mm-hmm.
consume form.
Yeah.
So when people are struggling with pill fatigue, they're just feeling like they're taking handfuls of things multiple times a day. This is where we get creative in choosing different forms for that patient that
Yeah.
says, let's do this as a liquid. Let's do this as a powder.
Mhm.
Let's use this as um, a augmented protein powder that's not just protein, but we
Right.
can add the B
Yeah.
vitamins and the
Yeah.
minerals
Yeah.
to really give people
Yeah.
the nutrition that they need. As an
Right.
example, my children,
Mm-hmm.
my son specifically, has bucked me every step of the way with a multivitamin. He'll tell me they taste terrible. We've tried gummies, we've tried liquids, we've tried all sorts of things. Ultimately, I choose for him a very nutritionally dense protein powder because he likes to make a smoothie every single day for his breakfast.
Nice.
So we
Yeah.
finally hit on what works for him so that he can get the nutrition but not have to gag down yucky tasting pills.
Right. Yeah. And then I bet you also throw in a little bit of fish oil and maybe some hemp hearts for some minerals.
In fact, he doesn't mind taking the fish oil pill. It's the multivitamin
Oh,
that he
interesting.
struggles with. He's
Yeah.
done fish oil since he was just a little guy, and
Right.
he doesn't mind at all. But it's the multivitamin, the taste. And so,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
we can meet patients where they're at
Mhm.
with brands that we trust
Yeah.
through one of my favorite vitamin warehouses called Full Script.
Mm-hmm.
I know Susannah uses Full Script too, but
Yep.
we can choose those brands that we trust, palatable tastes,
Mm-hmm.
or very certain formulas that people can use in liquids, powders, as well as pills.
Yeah. And just a quick side note, yes, let's talk more about FallScript, but there's a company, not to plug any one company in particular, but I just want to make sure people know about standard process because sometimes, and it sounds like you and your son, he's your greatest teacher, isn't he? I love it.
Totally.
So all our kids are. So we sometimes we find that you found a solution with the protein shakes. Sometimes standard process because they're 100% food based, like they really are. If they need some beta carotene, they're going to grow carrots. Right? They
Yes.
need some betaine, they're going to grow some beet greens. And they have this fabulous organic farm in Wisconsin, and they where they grow all of these nutrients, and then they put them into these little tablets. And for some people, and then they do use animal products because they have to get to those fat soluble vitamins. So they test them like mad. Their testing is very rigorous. And so I'll use standard process when I can't quite find the the B vitamins that somebody's really going to tolerate and enjoy and like take into their body and absorb and go, yeah, I like when I take that, I like how I feel and I like how it feels going into my body. And so you found that solution, and I have a handful of patients also who like they'll take a protein shake, no problem. They will not take a pill. Other
Right.
people, they'll take a standard process tablet, and that seems to work for them. So, finding the right fit for the right person is one of the things that you and I both in our clinics are really good at, I think. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
It's
Mhm.
customizing
Yeah.
for that unique individual
Yeah.
their needs
Yeah.
based on testing,
Mhm.
their needs based on their symptom picture,
Mhm.
as well as what they're willing to do.
Yeah.
Again, my son's willing to do a
Mhm.
protein
Yeah.
shake with
Right.
this very nutritionally dense protein powder, and he's really good at it.
And
And
that's allowing him, by the way, to perform as a high level athlete and go really enjoy his life and do things that are really super cool for his age, and to
mhm.
be really healthy and well. And that's what I really want to hit home, so to speak, with this. He's a soccer player. With this with this conversation is, how does this actually improve your enjoyment of your life? And
Yes.
how do we fit that into your budget of time, energy, money? And let's talk for a little minute. I want to get back to the full script conversation, but also let's talk for a minute more about pill fatigue that you talked about, which is so many pills. And what I find, and I think you'll find too, find also, is that when people are sick and when they first start out, they will take an enormous amount of supplements and herbs and medicine because their bodies on some level just know they need it, and their willingness usually is pretty high. And then over time, as they start to improve, they start to get like I've felt it before. I'm like, I'm full, like I don't want more. So what do we do with these people, right? We want you to continue to stay healthy and vital and well. We want you to continue to enjoy your life. And how to, once you're sort of over that hump of like, oh, I feel better, which is so much fun. It provides so much meaning for us as providers to see our patients getting well. It's so cool. I can't tell you enough. And how do we continue to improve people's lives? So not just like, all right, I did that, and now I'm going to
So
get back to my, forgive me, but crappy little one a day. So, how do we do that? Talk to me about that a little bit. About
So, first thing, as we've talked about before, is we identify the needs based on
Mhm.
testing and symptoms
Yeah,
and work to resolve and repair those systems, those organ systems, whether
right.
it's the gut, whether it's the adrenals, whether
Yeah,
it's the endocrine system with thyroid or, hormone issues. We work to repair and rebuild those systems with being more aggressive in our intervention, which generally leads to more pill counts, on a
Mhm.
day-to-day basis. So
Yeah,
let's say after 2 months, 3 months, maybe 6 months, we've gotten to a level of improvement. And this is where we do what I like to call a pill audit, where we
nice.
reevaluate
Yeah.
what people are doing. And is that dosing still necessary? Is there a different formula that we need to switch to
Yeah,
for maintenance? Because what you're really talking about, Susannah, is maintaining the health and wellness that they have finally
right,
achieved.
right.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so pill audits, reevaluating, are those formulas
Mhm.
still necessary, or
Mhm.
can we combine this pill with that
Mhm.
pill
Right,
into a high
yeah,
potency multivitamin?
right.
Or can we reduce the amount that they need to take
Mhm.
to maintain their wellness? And so it's important for you to ask your providers, whether you're working with Susannah or I, or maybe some other
Mhm.
provider, to do
Yep.
a pill audit to say, are these
Yeah,
still really necessary? Do I need this dosing?
right,
Can we adjust things? And the
right.
same applies if people are taking prescription medications. Ask your providers about
Mhm.
auditing the pills that you take.
Yeah, yeah.
Are they still necessary at that same dose?
Mhm.
Can we combine different formulas into one for simplifying, reducing the pill counts? And the
Mhm.
same applies for prescriptions. Is it still necessary for the patient to be at this dose on a
Mhm.
prescription medication? Or is your testing, improved and so we can use less? Do
Mhm.
we need more? So it's important to reevaluate those things. It's like the idea of cleaning out your closet or cleaning out your fridge, like
Yeah,
you're auditing
right.
those places to see if that's
I
still
love
okay.
that. We're heading into the autumn season here in a little bit, and we're check in for a couple podcasts from now, probably in October, we're going to talk about the metal element from Chinese medicine and discerning what's of value and what's not, including what used to be really important and is no longer. So in our clinic, like when people have gotten through sort of the big acute, like, oh, I'm sick, nothing's working, and now they're like, I feel great. We talk about a vitality plan, and it includes these seasonal check-ins. And for some people, it's twice a year. For other people, it's every season. At least come to see us for acupuncture once a season. Some people, it's once a month, to just check in. How are you doing? What's your priority? What are your goals? I'd love to ask people, it's like, what have you been doing to improve your health in the last month and 90 days? What has been felt health affirming? Where are those targeted places where you could use a little more guidance from me and a little more support? Right? I know you do the same thing in your clinic, Breana. So you're not relying on us, but you've got us in your back pocket. And I love to consider myself as people's natural medicine home base. And so they come to us for these when you're on a vitality plan, you still get our VIP service, but it's just as you need it. It's just every now and then, but you're continuing to do these daily. We've done the pill audit. We call it an herb review at our clinic, but it's the same idea, right? Of like, what are you doing currently? We have you do assessments. We have you come in person so we can check your tongue, look at your pulse, do all our Chinese medicine diagnostics, and then say, oh, and then we also review your labs from your doctor or from our lovely Dr. B. And so we can either do your blood chemistry or your saliva testing or your gut testing, or you can go to your doctor for your blood chemistry. And then we say, okay, given that, what's your priority for the next season? And what's that balance point with supplements so that's going to keep you well, getting a good night's sleep and getting out of bed in the morning, ready for the day, ready to greet your family, ready to go exercise, ready to be focused and on it at work and in your personal life, right? What are your goals? And so we can be that for you. We would love to be that home base for you where we talk about optimal health and we talk about what are the individual ways to get you there. So just a quick back, the reason why you keep hearing about FullScript is because it's this fabulous company that hasn't been around for a super long time in the form that we know it. So I'm not sure how they changed their business model, but they've made themselves available to all of us as a high level functional nutrition augmented supplements source. So Dr. Breana and I can prescribe a high quality multivitamin or minerals or a very specific targeted herbal medicine from these high quality and brands that we have vetted personally over time, and we know that those supplements are worth taking. And so you set up an account with FullScript. We invite you to FullScript. We prescribe or recommend these supplements to you, and then you order them yourself. And you can get free shipping really easily. They have sales every now and then. So that's the way you can get it delivered to your own home and you still know that it's really high quality and it makes the whole process really easy. So we encourage all of our patients to get on FullScript and to use us as a resource. So we're your guidance, and then FullScript. The other thing I really like is that they're really fresh. There's no problem with shelf life because their turnover is really high. And they have,
Yes.
150 different brands that
They have so many brands. I consider
Yeah.
them like the
Mhm.
vitamin warehouse if we're
Yeah.
using the warehouse model that we talked
Right.
about
There you
earlier.
go.
I get
Right.
to shop their shelves and
Mhm.
say,
Mhm.
"Oh, I love this product for
Yeah.
you. It's a reasonable price. It's a brand that I trust,
Right.
and you
Yeah.
know that I'm giving you the
Mhm.
recommendation, the prescription that's appropriate for your unique needs." I did want to make one point also in
Yep.
the sense of the
Yep.
pill audit.
Uh-huh.
So let's say you get sick this fall, you get influenza, you have COVID, you have some type of illness.
Mhm.
That's a great way to come back in and have a refresher, come back in and to
Mhm.
be evaluated to say,
Yeah.
what's happening with you now
Mhm.
since you had that infection, or maybe you get the stomach flu and you're just hugely depleted.
Yeah.
When we have those events that happen
Mhm.
that knock us off balance,
Mhm.
those are really great times to come back in,
Right.
have a visit to evaluate what's necessary to get back to health when you've been knocked down by an infection. So keep that in mind as well, because
Mhm.
cold
Yeah.
and flu season, COVID season is upon us very,
It
very
is.
quickly.
Yeah. And I can speak to that using an event like acute illness can actually have a silver lining of getting our attention and having us, I just did this recently. I'm like, okay, I've got a very narrow line with what's okay for me to eat and do in my life and what's not. And it's making me improve my health to a level that is better than before I was sick. How about
Yep.
that? I mean, that's pretty
Yep.
cool, right? Those reminders like, whoop, time to clean house, right?
Yep.
And as we continue to grow in our health, we're just going to continue to grow. So it's not like, oh, I'm reached a certain point here. Like there's always room to improve the quality of your life. That's the cool thing, right? So you just continue, like you have a better threshold, and then you're like, I'm really enjoying where I'm at. And are there ways that I can continue to make that better? It's not that I'm always having to reach and I'm never good enough. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, can we enjoy the level where we're at and allow the possibility that we can improve, and that we can improve not just for ourselves, but for the people around us, and that we can impact our family, our coworkers, the people we meet every day, and we can provide a legacy that improves the quality of not just our lives, but those around us. And I love that about this augmented nutrition, that when we are well, then we become a resource for other people in our lives. So how cool is that, right?
It's awesome that the ripple effects will
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
impact those
yeah,
around us.
right. So if this conversation inspires you, how do we reach you, the audience? How do you reach How do we reach you, Dr. Breana?
So my website is
Mhm.
gvnm.info, Gallatin Valley Natural Medicine. And you could also call or text my office,
Mhm.
406 587 0858, and would be happy to set up new patient appointments through my telemedicine model. That's how I interact primarily with patients, is through telemedicine, because that is a benefit that came out of our COVID pandemic. Is
Yeah,
telemedicine is
yeah,
really available in so much a more widespread application now.
yeah. Totally get that and agree. And then when patients need to see you in person, they also have the opportunity to do that. Same
Correct.
thing with us here. So it's Great Turning Healing Center. Again, I'm Susannah Freeman, licensed acupuncturist, but the acupuncture is it's a little bit of a simplistic term. Really what we're talking about here is the more global system of traditional Chinese medicine, Oriental medicine, including functional medicine. So how do we improve health, not just with acupuncture, but also with herbal medicine and daily supplements and nutrition? So it's really the whole package. And Breana and I, we have separate clinics, and yet we're like this Venn diagram, right? So there's Gallatin Valley Natural Medicine, and then there's Great Turning Healing Center, and then there's the magic and the synergy that happens when the two of us come together and use our combined collaborative experience. So that's really cool. So if you need to reach us in particular, it's greatturninghealing.com. And our phone number here is 406-599-0088. And you can also reach us on social media. And so anything else, just to like hit home, not all brands are created equal. We're going to find the level of supplementation and augmented functional nutrition that's going to build your quality of life. No matter what your budget is, we're going to fine tune that and prioritize it. We're going to do that with our experience and with our training and with understanding our patients' unique needs and their own wisdom. And we're going to put that together. Right? Anything to add? Our great Dr.
That you've said it so eloquently, Susannah.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for having me on today. I look forward to the next time that we get to interact.
Thank you. Will do. Y'all take care. Enjoy the day. Bye now.